If I look a mess and I sound bunged up and my eyes are red, then it's because I cried throughout most of episodes 7 and 8. Hello everybody, it is Katie here. I have just binge watched all 8 episodes of Heartstopper season 2 in one sitting. So basically I'm really busy for the next couple of days, so I knew that I needed to film my video for Heartstopper immediately after watching it. So here I am, fresh off episode 8, doing amazing! I haven't even had a chance to look online and see everybody else's reactions. I literally just stopped watching, tried to pull myself together, put some makeup on, and came up here to film. Might not have been my wisest decision, but I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible, so here we are. I'm not going to bother doing a spoiler-free review. I just need to jump straight in. So if you haven't yet seen season 2, then please click off the video for now. For everybody else, as I'm sure you're aware, there are some darker themes within this series, and I am going to be talking about that in the video. So if you're not comfortable with those topics, then please feel free to just skip out on this video. I won't be offended, because I don't know whether to just tackle the hard-hitting parts first, get that out of the way so that I can cry about how cute everything else was. I was dreading this series as much as I was looking forward to it. The 3rd volume of Heartstopper is my favourite one. I love the Paris storyline, so I was really looking forward to seeing that play out on screen, and it was just done so beautifully. But also, we know that's when Charlie's mental health starts to dip and things do get a lot darker and scarier. And I had a feeling that season 2 would delve a little bit into the 4th volume to set us up for season 3, which it did. The main storyline that I was dreading dealing with this season was Charlie's mental health. We saw the barest of hints in season 1 about his eating disorder when it focused a little bit on him not eating his lunch and breakfast, whereas in this season it makes that very clear to the audience. In true me fashion, I'm going to jump straight in at the end of the series and talk about that. First of all, there is a scene in the final episode where Charlie fully opens up to Nick and tells him how much he suffered mentally after the bullying he experienced. And it's in that scene where he starts to talk about his self-harm in the past. I've made it through 8 years without crying on booktube. And this is the thing that's finally got to me. The reason that that is such an important storyline to me is because I am somebody who has seen firsthand how much self-harm can affect a person's life. I did ask my sister if I could talk about this before filming the video because I knew that I was probably going to get upset, and she said she didn't mind. Self-harm is something that we've experienced in this family through her and her journey with mental health, and it's something that's been really difficult for all of us. It's one of the reasons why Solitaire is one of the most important books that I have in my life. I always say that Alice's other stories are my favourites before Solitaire because I have a really complicated relationship with Solitaire in that it's really difficult for me to read because it follows Tori, who is the older sister of somebody who goes through this sort of mental health crisis, whilst also dealing with her own underlying depression and anxiety that she feels like she can't really open up about. I'm sorry for those of you who've never read Solitaire because I've just basically spoiled the entire plot for you. It does revolve around her relationship with Charlie and the effect that that has on her as well. And so Solitaire has always been one of the few books that sees inside my soul, and for that reason I find it really difficult to read despite loving it at the same time. And as we move further along in the Heartstopper storyline, we get closer to the timeline that happens in Solitaire. So I knew that we were heading towards Charlie's mental health crisis. I don't even have words to talk about how important that side of Charlie's story is. When it comes to Heartstopper, you know, over the past year, we've all talked about how much of a gorgeous positive love story it is, because, you know, that's what it is at its core, but it's also not just completely about the romance between Nick and Charlie, it's about their individual journeys as well, and we see a lot more of Charlie's this time. And to see that unfold on screen was just such an incredible experience. What I've always appreciated about Heartstopper as a story is we start off with Nick and Charlie's romance, and then we deal with the things that come after a happily ever after, which is something that we don't get a lot in stories. And it's such an important tool to showcase getting the guy of your dreams, coming out to everyone, and finally being that happy couple you've always wanted to be, isn't going to fix all of your problems. Despite having all these things, Charlie is still suffering with his mental health, and it's still something that he has to work on. This just means that he has Nick to lean on whilst he's going through this. So yeah, the final 10-15 minutes of this season absolutely devastated me. I could barely see through my tears. I certainly couldn't breathe through my nose. I'm just in awe of how much this story, both the graphic novel and now the show, manages to help teenagers, young people, just people in general. You don't have to be the same age as these characters to relate to what they're going through. It manages to help them in so many different aspects of their lives. It's not just about romance and relationship drama, it's also about the individual things we struggle with as well. The things that you might not know other people are going through. And because we got so much of that in this series, I feel like it was a much more important story to tell. I do feel like I'm babbling on because I don't have notes or anything, like I said. So I'm going to stop talking about that side of things for now. Maybe revisit that at a later time when I've had a chance to sit with my emotions. But I just want to reiterate how completely important Heartstopper is for what it does. And I just desperately wish that I had something like this when I was in high school. And I'm just so grateful to Alice for creating something that the newer generation can use as a tool to help them navigate the world. Right, sad stuff aside, shall we move on to the happier things? Shall we? I say happier, but there was angst all throughout this season, so you know. But anyway, let's talk about the season as a whole. So starting off with Nick and Charlie, obviously the main thing for them this season, other than Charlie's mental health, is Nick trying to come out to the people in his life. And it does a brilliant job of showcasing how difficult that is and how it's not just a one-off deal. You don't just come out and then that's it. You have to tell different people constantly. And so it was very poignant to see that being Nick's storyline this season because of what Kit Connor went through over the past year with the fans that accused him of queer baiting for not being an out queer person in this show. And I won't get into a rant about that again because I ranted a little bit about that last time, but I'm still so fucking angry over it. But yeah, we had to watch Nick go through that, and then when he does start to open up and come out to people, he gets the typical "oh, I didn't know you were gay" comments. Like, he has to be the straight or gay, like there's no in between. One of the things that showed this the most was David. So we had Nick's brother introduced in this season. Absolutely hate David. What a prick. Is he on par with Ben for the biggest prick in the show? Maybe. So when David finds out about Nick and Charlie, well, you know, he doesn't really find out. He figures out and then interrogates poor Charlie whilst he's on his own in Nick's room because he's an asshole. He also goes into the, well, you're actually just gay. You're not bi. You just can't admit that you're fully gay. And I hate that people who aren't either gay or straight have to deal with that all the time. Whether you're bi or pan or you're just queer in general, that's something that all of those communities have to go through. And I like that the show showed everyone how fucking stupid it really is. It is never your place to question somebody else's sexuality or to interrogate them about it. And so yeah, David was a necessary evil in this series. I'm so thankful that the dinner party was included in this season so that we got to see Tori kick his phone and call him a pathetic little man. Highlight of my year, I think. It's one of my favourite moments in the graphic novel, so I'm happy, I'm content. Thank you very much. So other necessary evils, we had Ben. But Ben's... Did he really go on a journey in season 2? I mean, he said that he was a better person, but... Is he? Really? I think I saw somebody describe him as an anti-hero the other day. Can we put hero anywhere near a description of Ben? What he put Charlie through is literally unforgivable, and I am so happy that Charlie made that plain and clear to him this season. He was popping up throughout all of the episodes. He then made it clear that he still liked Charlie, apparently. He dated Imogen for a bit of attention. Imogen told him where to stick it. That was another absolutely fantastic scene. And then he tries to get Charlie to talk to him, and Charlie gives him that whole speech. I was so proud of Charlie in that moment. He doesn't have to accept an apology in order to make Ben feel better, because Ben put Charlie through shit. And it's not his responsibility to help Ben get over that. That's Ben's job by himself. So after that, we don't see Ben again this season, and he did mention that he wasn't staying on at Truham, so maybe that's leading into Solitaire's storyline. Please. But aside from that, I loved everything about Nick and Charlie's relationship this season. When they did have problems, they did try and be as honest as they could with each other. They both have things that they were hiding from the other. Nick didn't really talk about his dad, and Charlie didn't really talk about what was wrong with him. The scene in the Louvre where Charlie passes out after not eating, it was horrifying to read in the graphic novel, and it was just as awful to see it come to life on screen, but it was covered so well in the show, and I'm grateful for how many open conversations we got between Nick and Charlie. Joe and Kit are fantastic actors as well. Like, they just bring these characters to life so perfectly. I can't imagine anybody else in those roles. So I do want to move on to one of my absolute favourite things about this season, and that is Tao and Elle finally getting together. So Tao and Elle are one of my favourite couples in this series, just because I just think they're adorable. They've been best friends for so long, and we see their relationship changing, and obviously it's not easy because they're both scared of messing up that friendship, but in this season they finally overcome the barriers that were stopping them from finally jumping over... I am making no sense. From finally getting together, there we go. Their first kiss scene was just absolutely gorgeous. The window, it was completely the same as it was in the graphic novel, and I'm just so happy. They are so cute. There was a little bit of tension with regards to Elle going to an art college that is further away, but I'm glad that they seem to resolve that by the end. And also I'm really happy for Elle in general, because she's just got a wonderful new friendship group at this new art college. She's showcasing her art. When that cloth was pulled and it was revealed to be a painting of the four of them, I cried again. Episode 7, I don't think I stopped crying throughout that entire thing. Constant tears. I am trying to speedrun all the main points in this season, by the way, so if I'm just rushing through things then I do apologise, but I am going to move on to Tora and Darcy. Darcy is one of my favourite characters, so to get that insight into her life at home this season was absolutely heart-wrenching. I think it went a little bit deeper into it than the graphic novel does, because we actually saw an interaction between her and her mother. It absolutely broke my heart, because Darcy was so happy about the suit that she was going to wear to prom, and all of her friends helped her pay for it, and she's taking pictures in the mirror, and then her fucking mother walks in and starts shit. Actually, she's a contender for biggest asshole of the series as well. And then when Tora went to the house to check on Darcy because she was worried, having not heard from her, her mother was talking about what she was wearing and said, oh, she looks like a lesbian. I wanted to slap. I am so glad that Darcy did get to open up to Tora in the end. Their little scene in the last episode where they literally just shouted I love you at each other was the cutest thing in the whole world. Darcy deserves all the happiness, honestly. So the other major thing that I wanted to talk about with regards to this season is Isaac, because that is another major part of this season that hit a little bit too close to home for me. I was dreading Isaac's storyline this season because we knew that his asexuality was going to be explored a little bit. So in this season we had a character introduced who had a very obvious crush on Isaac, and you could tell throughout the episodes that Isaac just did not know what to do with that. So we get to this point where they end up kissing and Isaac realises that there's nothing there. He isn't feeling the typical things you're supposed to be feeling when you have a crush on somebody, and that starts his journey to figuring out that he could be a Euro ace. Seeing him always on the outside whilst his friends were in romantic relationships is something that, yeah, it definitely hit close to home. I'm somebody who hasn't labelled myself Aero yet because sexuality is confusing and I genuinely don't know. Not as interested in romantic relationships as the majority of people are, and it's something that I didn't even start to realise about myself until I read Loveless by Alice Oseman. Because, you know, I was aware of asexuality and Aero ace, and you know, I was aware of all those terms and what it meant, and I didn't look too much into it with regards to myself, but then I think Loveless made me consider it a little bit more. I am pansexual, I am attracted to everyone, but romantic relationships, I can't figure out whether that's something I want, and that's fine because I don't have to figure it out, which is why things like this are so important, because they help us feel accepted no matter what. So yeah, some of the things that Isaac went through this season were particularly upsetting. I cried quite a bit, especially when he finally snapped and he didn't mean to have a go at the others, but he did, for not finding him interesting unless he's having a romantic drama, which is something that I definitely related to a lot. But the scene at Elle's art show when he sees one of the pieces and that guy comes up to him and explains that it's about being Aero ace. I'm so thankful for that moment existing, and you know, it needed to be done because we don't talk about asexuality nearly enough as we should. So it was especially important that Isaac have that storyline, and I am excited to see where it goes. I just want to quickly mention how much I loved the subplot between the teachers in this series, and it provided a lot of humour. I did see, I think it was like a review of the show, I don't know, I don't really read the reviews, but I saw something on Twitter where somebody said that that plot line was unnecessary and it didn't need to be there, and that it should just be about the teenagers, and that really pissed me off because Heartstopper wasn't just important for the teenagers it represents. People in my generation, I'm 31 now, we didn't have this in school. People older than me certainly didn't have this. I remember when Alice was first creating Heartstopper and how many of my book blogging friends rallied together to help fund for Heartstopper to get published. And I always hate it when people try and turn around and say that we have less of a right to enjoy it as the teenagers that it's currently made for, because, you know, that's not fair. We've been there since the start. We love this story so much. Older people get to enjoy this story as much as anyone because they never got to see themselves represented when they were growing up. So I thought it was important to include a queer love story between some of the older characters in the show as well. Especially because Mr. Farouk says that he never got to have those experiences because he didn't realise he was gay until his 20s. And I think that's obviously something that a lot of people relate to. So I absolutely adored the subplot between the teachers. They were one of the highlights of the season for me, and if you didn't enjoy it, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Let the old queers be happy. They're not even old. They're not even old. So yeah, to whoever that reviewer was, you know, it can revolve around the teenagers and still cater for the queer adults that are just trying to get the slice of happiness that they never got to enjoy. Talking about humour, there were so many funny moments in this season, and I can't even think of one to highlight in the video because my mind's just gone blank. But yeah, there was lots of humour this series. I really enjoyed it. It was a great mix of humour and the more serious stuff as well. I like that the season was like split into two halves, where half of it happened in the school and then the other half was in Paris. I'm just listing off things I adored now before the video ends. I loved Nick finally coming out at that party and how much of an important scene that was. I loved the whole drama with the hickey, that was hilarious. I also loved Tori in this season, despite the fact that we barely saw her, because obviously I love Tori. When are we getting the Solitaire spin-off? It's either got to be a spin-off or you just integrate it completely into Heartstopper season 3. I don't care how they do it, I just want Solitaire in it. Even though it will be hard for me to experience, I want it. And I want Michael Holden. Now. Please. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say for now. I want to say so much more. There's so much I have to say. There really is, but yeah, I've got to get this edited. Maybe I'll make another video at some point once I've thought about everything, once my brain cells are working again. They're not working very well at the moment because I have a headache from crying, which is what happened last series. And I've cried more this series, so it's painkiller time. So as always, please discuss everything Heartstopper related down in the comments. If you have specific moments you want to scream about, then feel free to do so. What were your favourite moments in this season, and what are you looking forward to in season 3, which we're getting? Isn't it so nice to have already been renewed for a 3rd season so that you don't have to worry about whether you're going to get renewed or not? I finished Good Omens season 2 the other day. I wonder if that'll get a season 3. So yeah, it's great to know that we're already getting it, and we can immediately theorise about what's going to happen next. Will we get Michael Holden? Answer. Someone? Anyone? Please. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're all okay after season 2, and make sure to hydrate to replenish the fluid you lost whilst crying. I will see you next time. Bye!